안녕하세요. 하나하나 한글입니다. This is introduction video for the series of videos following. In the series of the following videos, we're focusing more on vocabularies than sentences. Our ultimate goals are like this. First, you will perfectly master a Korean writing system. Second, you are going to familiarize yourself to a few irregular phonology rules. I see many people who underestimate the Korean language only because the learning written form is easy. However, it is still a language. There are a bunch of different irregular pronunciations. So if you don't know how to apply these phonology rules, you will sound too awkward forever. Finally, if you can, I want you to memorize those new words I will introduce. So they are easy, basic, and most frequent words. So I think it'd be better for you to learn it as soon as possible. Okay. Then let me tell you about a little bit about background of Korean language. I'm going to introduce different types of languages and where Korean is located. And second, linguistic background of Korean language itself. And then finally, let's talk about Hangul, the Korean alphabet system. So according to recent studies, we can align various languages in the world in a spectrum. At one end, there are exoteric languages. Exoteric languages are shared by a larger group of people. They are frequently contacted by many different cultures for various reasons, like commercial reasons, educational reasons, I don't know, some cultural reasons. Naturally, these languages are learned more by adults. Because languages evolve, they become simpler in structure to fit into the adults' stiff brains. What do you think is a good example as an exoteric language? If you say English, I agree with you. In contrast, at the other side of the spectrum, there are esoteric languages. Esoteric languages are shared by relatively smaller group, isolated geographically or culturally. So these languages are learned more by infants than adults. As you know, infants' brain are extremely plastic and flexible, so language itself doesn't have to worry about fitting in. So these type of languages still have highly irregular structures and many particularities in terms of forms and meanings. What do you think is a good example of esoteric languages? If you said Korean, I think you're correct. So this is not clear-cut black and white issue. It's a matter of a spectrum, isn't it? So I would say Korean language is more of a more esoteric compared to English. Okay, let's talk about some linguistic background of Korean language. Korean language is language isolate, which means it doesn't have any relatives in terms of languages. It used to be thought as one of the Ural-Altaic language families, but it was always controversial, and more and more evidence shows that actually Korean is language isolate. Maybe the most similar language to Korean might be Japanese, but I think it's only because their cultural and geographical and historical closeness or overlaps. Actually, Japanese language belongs to a Japanese language family, which is also a language isolate. About 50% of Korean vocabulary is Sino-Korean words, which originated from Chinese characters. But they've been there for such a long time, so even natives cannot distinguish Sino-Korean words from pure Koreans. Korean language is a agglutinative language. You don't have to know this word, but you can see glue here, isn't it? So it means you can compose a word by adding different components at the end of each word. Korean verbs or adjectives are notorious for its huge number of varieties in conjugation. For example, look at this picture. All of these words, I don't know, dozens of words, they all mean I don't know. And if you're a Korean, if you're a native Korean, you might notice the slight difference among these in terms of nuances. Okay, finally, let's talk about hangeul, the Korean writing system. Korean writing system is artificial orthography. It was artificially made in 15th century by King Sejong the Great himself and his scholars. By then, around 15th century, which was Joseon Dynasty in Korean Peninsula, by then we didn't have any writing system, so people had to use the Chinese characters to express Korean language. There's some conflict, isn't it? As you know, Chinese writing systems are logograph. It is called logograph, where one character is linked to the meaning instead of the sound. Therefore, you have to memorize all those different characters, thousands. As a result, only rich people, privileged people were able to read and write because they didn't have to work. Creation of Hangul was the whole paradigm change. First of all, from logograph to phonograph. So logograph, as I said, one character is connected to one meaning. However, phonograph, a letter or a character is linked to the sound. So all you need to know to express your own language is just, I don't know, 1 or 2 dozens of letters. How easy and efficient is it? So from the privileged people to the commoners, basically everyone could learn how to read and write. Interestingly, Hangul has been appreciated highly by international linguists. Let's see. Hangul is perhaps the most scientific system of writing in general use in any country. Hangul must unquestionably rank as one of the great intellectual achievements of humankind. It's too much, isn't it? Koreans, invented the world's best alphabet. It is clear that the Korean alphabet is not only simple and logical, but has moreover been constructed in a purely scientific way. Why? Why does it receive so many compliments from international professional linguists? First reason, Korean Hangul is shallow orthography, which means only exclusive one-to-one connection between sounds and letters. English is notorious for being a deep orthography, one of the deepest orthography. For example, this character, alphabet character A, has different sound in all these different words. Another reason why Hangul was praised so much, Hangul consonants visually represent human mouth shapes of, facing left. For example, look at this first picture. This letter sounds g, g. And the letter represents your tongue touches the hard palate. Imagine, try this, g, g, and imagine the point your location your tongue touches. And look at this letter, it's sound. It represents the airflow through your teeth. And the final picture represents your throat, and it sounds but most importantly, Hangul consonant sets have very systematic relations among themselves. Look at this. Let me start with this g sound. I already told you this is g sound, the basic sound. If you add one more stroke into it, it becomes k, aspirated sound. If you duplicate the basic letter, it becomes g, the tensed sound. If you see these sets, let me read it for you. G, d, b, j. They're all voiced sounds. And the second row, k, t, p, ch. They're all aspirated sound. Last one, g, d, b, j. They are all tensed sound. But if you look vertically, if you compare these letter shapes, they look very similar and with slight variations in between. Meanwhile, Korean vowels have somewhat cultural reference point. All the Korean vowels are the combination of these three components. Dot, which represents the sky, a horizontal line, which represents the earth, and the vertical line, which represents the human being. So philosophical background of these vowel combination is the harmony between nature and the human being. So one of the mobile keyboard, these three buttons can basically make all the possible Korean vowels. So far, I took you through the basic but important background of Korean language and its writing system. I hope this prepared you with a new mindset. Hangul might be easy to learn, but Korean language is not Hangul. It is still a language full of irregularity. It might be much more difficult than learning English, French, German, Dutch, or Spanish. Here's my last comments. Learning a new language is like learning a new musical instrument. Some days it goes well and some days it doesn't. If you are fed up with this crazy irregular grammar structures or conjugation rules of Korea, just give it a rest and relax and listen to your NCT or BTS musics or watch a K-drama. But important thing is you don't give up. So if you think you're ready to dive into this crazy language, let's go. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.